A pair of hands directly intervened. I remembered Vincent's hands, long and bony. They had pushed all the chips to me, and they had rested on my shoulder. Vincent once again scooped me up in his arms and strode towards the nearest room. His arms were warm. I leaned against his chest and heard his steady, powerful heartbeat. I saw Julian, ignoring a stumbling Celeste, chasing after us. Then the pain was so intense I couldn't open my eyes. I just felt him put me down, gently take off my socks. And as the cold water ran over my foot, first there was an intensified pain. Then gradually, the pain subsided. I slowly opened my eyes, and what met my gaze was Vincent's well-defined jawline. He stared at my red foot with a deep gaze. My arms were still wrapped around his neck. The scene was a bit intimate. I sheepishly let go and thanked him, but the arm under my knees suddenly trembled, and I quickly wrapped my arms around him again in fear. Hold on tight. Be careful you don't fall. At the door, Julian's gaze sharpened, as if trying to see through the scene. His words were laced with gritted teeth. You're quite attentive to your niece, uncle. But isn't this a bit too close? Vincent didn't even turn his head. He said, word for word, I only have one niece, and this is my private room. Please leave. Julian's face turned ashen. In the end, he turned and left. After making sure I was okay, Vincent finally lifted me off the counter. Then he carried me to the edge of the bed and sat me down. I remembered he had said this was his room, which meant I was now sitting on his bed. I immediately felt restless and tried to stand up, but he pressed down on my shoulders. Sit still. Don't move. He placed my foot on his knee, dried it with a towel, and gently applied burn ointment with a cotton swab. His touch was so light I could barely feel any pain. Unlike the usual angle where I had to look up at him, this time I was looking down at him. I could even see the thick hair on the top of his head. I don't know where I found the courage to ask him, Uncle, do you really dislike me? His hand paused. Without looking up, he asked back, why would you think that? I thought for a moment and said, when Grandpa adopted me as his granddaughter. You didn't approve, did you? He chuckled to himself, his voice as gentle as jade. The old man has a devious mind. I don't approve. But that's not because I dislike you. I was so shocked that my jaw almost dropped. Vincent actually described his own father that way. But since he said he didn't dislike me, I boldly asked again. At Celeste's welcome party, did you see me in the garden? He didn't speak. After he had finished applying the ointment and put my foot down, he finally spoke slowly. Yes, I saw you. Even though I knew the answer, my heart still skipped a beat. Then, do you know about my relationship with Julian? At the mention of Julian's name, his face darkened, and his voice deepened slightly. I know. Then what about Celeste? He stood up and tapped my forehead with his knuckle. Still have the mind to worry about others. Celeste will never like him. It's just his one-sided wishful thinking. I nodded. After he went out to call Miles, I belatedly realized how intimate our actions had been. I'm doomed. Vincent is really strange. Miles's hands were inconvenient. So in the end, it was Vincent who carried me downstairs, and Miles who helped me home. As we were going downstairs, Julian was sitting on the sofa, his eyes following me closely, not at all afraid of being discovered. Was he crazy? He was the one who had insisted on keeping it a secret. I glared at him fiercely. Miles noticed my expression and was a bit puzzled. Why are you looking at him like that? Did you hold a grudge because he accidentally burned you? I said with a mischievous smile. Yeah, bro. I can't stand the sight of him now. My foot hurts whenever I see him. So don't bring him to our house for a while. Miles nodded thoughtfully. The next morning, Julian tried to come to our house under some pretext. Miles blocked him at the door with one hand and refused. Aren't you supposed to be going out with Celeste today? What are you doing here? I was sitting on the sofa, legs crossed, watching a cartoon. I just heard his voice. I burned Iris's foot so badly. How can I have the heart to go out? Let me in to see her. Thankfully, I was prepared and had Miles be my mouthpiece. Don't come. My sister can't stand the sight of you lately. It might be PTSD. Julian was turned away at the door. Miles came and sat down next to me. By the way, he said, as if remembering something, Uncle asked me to send him your contact information. He said you were injured at the Wynn family's house, and he has a responsibility to follow up on your recovery. Seeing me silent, Miles was very considerate. I know you're shy and don't like dealing with people you don't know well. Should I refuse for you? No. I quickly looked up. Send it to him. After the words were out, Miles's expression became complicated. I realized my tone was a bit off and quickly tried to explain. After all, he's an elder I'm now related to. It would be rude to refuse. Less than 10 minutes later, I received a friend request from Vincent. His WeChat was just like him. A pure black profile picture, a blank nickname, and a clean, empty feed. In other words, nothing. He sent a message. Feeling better. I replied, much better. Thank you, uncle. The typing indicator appeared several times on his end, but nothing was sent. My foot healed in a few days, and Miles's cast came off. My parents joked that the bad luck in our family was finally over, and neither of their children had to be disabled anymore. After the spring festival, it was time for my internship, a design position in my field. The pay was average, but the internship at a top company was very valuable. I had to report for duty right after the 7th day of the new year. Miles bought me a small apartment near the company and stuffed my bag with various self-defense tools. Call me if anything happens. Be careful. He arranged my independent life so meticulously that for the first time, I found him reliable. When did we become so close? On that rainy night when I was 18. He held me with red-rimmed eyes and repeatedly said he was sorry. Actually, I had never blamed him. A few days later, I received a message from Vincent. Heard you moved out for your internship. I replied, yeah, it's a bit far from home. He replied after a long time. Send me your location. After I sent it, he didn't reply again. Until the next evening, waiting for you downstairs. I had just finished a design draft after working late. I hurried downstairs. A Bentley Continental was parked downstairs. I ran from the back of the car. The driver's side window slowly rolled down, and the rearview mirror reflected Vincent's face. Uncle, what are you doing here? I had a social engagement nearby and came to see you. Don't they need drivers for social engagements now? After he spoke, we both fell silent. Ahem. I turned my head away and asked, do you want to come up for a bit? No. Get in. I tried to open the back door, but it wouldn't budge. Sit in the front, he said in a deep voice. I had no choice but to sheepishly get into the passenger seat. Vincent took me to a private restaurant. The location was a bit remote, but it was spacious and had a beautiful environment, with pavilions and terraces at every turn. There was no menu. Vincent asked me what I wanted to eat. I casually named a few dishes, and surprisingly, they could make them all. I couldn't help but secretly look at him. He ate very elegantly. The food on his chopsticks never fell into his bowl, and he didn't make a single sound. The top light shone on his face, casting a deep shadow from his eyelashes. I thought, God loves everyone, and Vincent was the favored one. He was born with everything: wealth, status, intelligence, charm, and good looks. He was superior in every way. I couldn't help but wonder, does a person like this have any worries? What are you thinking about? He asked, looking up. I was wondering, do you have any worries? He pursed his lips, as if thinking. Yes, he finally answered after a moment. I don't know how to please a girl. His dark eyes locked onto mine. Did they put poison mushrooms in the food? Am I hallucinating? When people are flustered, they pretend to be busy. I quickly looked down, ladled some soup, took some food, and added some rice. Thankfully, Vincent didn't continue. He asked me about my work environment and living conditions. I answered him respectfully, as if he were an elder. Finally, he asked me, has Julian contacted you again? I shook my head. I had blocked his phone number and WeChat. Even if he wanted to find me, he had no way. Besides, he and Celeste were getting hot and heavy. Yesterday, I saw a picture on her feed of them at a concert together. After dinner, he drove me home. I had been so tired from work lately. His car smelled so good that I fell asleep without realizing it. After a long time, I vaguely felt a warm stream of air on my face. I opened my eyes and was face with Vincent. His whole body was leaning over, his hand on my waist. I could almost hear my own heart beating. Just as I was debating whether to close my eyes, with a click, the seatbelt buckle was released. He sat up straight, his hands on the steering wheel. You looked uncomfortable sleeping. I unbuckled your seatbelt for you. His tone was so casual that it made me, who had been overthinking things, feel even more like a fool. "Thank you, Uncle. I'll be going now." I scrambled out of the car. In my peripheral vision, I saw Vincent's car parked on the side of the road, not moving for a long time. He only left after I had reached my apartment building. My phone beeped. A message from him. "Call me if you need anything. Be safe." On a 40-something degree night, I was as hot as if I had just run a half marathon in the middle of summer. I couldn't catch my breath. Below his message was one from Miles. "Julian is in your area. I asked him to bring you some things. Did you get them?" My footsteps faltered. I looked up and saw Julian leaning against the wall in the corridor. Cigarette butts littered the floor around him, as if he had been waiting for a long time. He stared at me. I tried to take the bag from his hand, but he stood frozen, not letting go. "Why did Vincent drive you home? What's it to you? Do you know how long I waited for you? I blocked your number and WeChat. I couldn't tell your brother. I waited from 7 until now, only to see you get out of Vincent's car. Didn't I tell you to stay away from him?" His tone was agitated, leaving me no room to interject. I glanced at the time. It was past 9. It seemed I had slept in Vincent's car for a long time. After he finished, I said calmly, "Are you so afraid I'll tell Vincent?" Even though I didn't say anything, he already knows. Julian's tone hitched, his voice tensing. "He knows. Let's not talk about that. Even if you like me and are heartbroken, you can find someone else. But not Vincent. He's not a good person. Are you crazy? I don't like you anymore." He looked as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You don't like me anymore? Then who do you like?" "Vincent." His tone annoyed me, and I instinctively retorted, "Yes, I like him. Is that okay?" I had never seen such an expression on Julian's face. His pupils dilated, his chest heaving with his breath, the knuckles of his hand clutching the bag turning white. "Iris, don't be ridiculous. I'll pretend I didn't hear what you said today. If I see you with Vincent again, I'll tell Miles. I believe he thinks the same way I do." Julian's shamelessness was beyond my imagination. The perpetrator was now threatening the victim. I snatched the bag from his hand. His face was as white as paper. As I walked past him, he called out in a last, desperate struggle, "Vincent almost killed someone." My heart suddenly trembled. I turned to look at Julian. He stood there, his back hunched. I went straight upstairs, but my hand on the elevator button was inexplicably shaking. I wouldn't ask Julian. He was no longer worthy of my trust. Remembering that Miles had also told me to stay away from Vincent, I called him. Miles on the other end was a bit hesitant. No matter how much I asked, he would only say, "Just stay away from him. Forget it." I was just lying to Julian anyway. I didn't even like Vincent that much. Later, I didn't reply to Vincent's occasional messages. On weekends, I tried my best to avoid him at home, even turning down Celeste's invitation to her house for dinner. The next time we met was in the spring. Despite my strong objections, my parents still threw me a grand birthday party. I couldn't very well not show up. Vincent arrived very late, in a sharp, handsome suit. He must have just come from the office. Celeste hurried over, lifting her skirt as she ran. I stood on the spiral staircase, looking down at him again. My mind uncontrollably went back to the scene of him applying medicine to my foot. A person like this. I couldn't even imagine him with blood on his hands. Would he really kill someone? He seemed to sense my gaze and looked up. Just as our eyes were about to meet, Julian suddenly called out to me from behind, "Iris, happy birthday." He took out a beautifully wrapped gift. I thanked him casually and asked a servant to take it. His eyes shone with hope, as if he were anticipating my reaction. "Aren't you going to open it? You'll definitely like this gift." "Julian, Celeste is downstairs. You should go." Hearing my formal address, a flicker of surprise crossed his face, and the light in his eyes dimmed. I turned back, but Vincent was gone. I've thought a lot about things lately. I was too foolish before. I impatiently cut him off. "Everyone's watching. Are you sure you want to reminisce with me here?" His face darkened, but he didn't continue. For some reason, a wave of disappointment washed over me. I seemed to have become strange too, as if I were looking forward to seeing Vincent. Miles settled me down to the side and said thoughtfully, "I know you can't handle these kinds of occasions. Go find a cool place to sit. I'll handle it." He greeted the guests, toasting and making small talk. It was tiring just watching him. I was so bored I was about to fall asleep when I suddenly heard Miles's voice, thick with suppressed anger. "How the fuck did you dare to come here?" My sleepiness vanished instantly. Normally, Miles wouldn't curse in public. I stood up, through Miles's back. I saw the man standing at the door. His body was tilted to one side, all his weight on a cane in his hand. And that face, covered in hideous scars, was a nightmare I never wanted to see again. My memory seemed to flash back to that damp, cold, rainy night. The man's ragged breathing, his nauseating voice, his touch, like a snake, slithering up my skin. The lights in front of me overlapped with the darkness of the memory. The sound of the pattering rain from that night echoed in my ears. As the world spun, a pair of hands steadied my arms. I instinctively tried to push them away, but they held my trembling hands tightly. "Don't be afraid. I'll take you to rest." My steps were unsteady. I leaned against Vincent as we left. I just heard a wild voice from behind. "Iris. Happy birthday. You remember me, right? I've been thinking about you every single moment these past few years. Leo Sue. I'll fucking kill you." Chaos erupted behind us. The sound of things smashing to the ground was harsh and jarring. The air around me felt like it had been sucked out. I couldn't breathe, until Vincent's hand was on my back, gently stroking from top to bottom. Deep breaths. "Don't be afraid." But I really couldn't hold on anymore. My vision went black, and I lost consciousness. I had a very long dream. In the dream, I was wearing my school uniform, holding a transparent umbrella. It was a late autumn with continuous rain. The ground was full of puddles. I carefully avoided them, afraid of getting mud on my white shoes and socks. Celeste had skipped her tutoring class to go on a date with her boyfriend. She had informed the driver in advance, so I had to go home by myself. It was already 8 o'clock when I left the tutoring center. I called Miles. It was noisy on his end. It sounded like someone was teasing him and another girl. I asked him if he could pick me up. He said he had something very important to do, and since the rain wasn't heavy, I should just take a taxi. It was such an ordinary day, but it was on this damn day that, before I could even get out of the alley, Leo Sue blocked my path. He said, "Iris, I like you." The Sue family had spoiled this youngest son rotten. If he liked a rabbit's fluffy ears, he would cut them off. If he was annoyed by a dog's barking, he would cut its vocal cords. I was afraid of him, but I couldn't get away. I said, "What you have isn't like. And I don't like you." "No. Like is wanting to have. Dislike is wanting to destroy. Let me prove it to you." "Okay. Prove how much I like you." I was pushed to the ground, my body covered in filth. He stomped on my umbrella and choked me. His disgusting lips pressed against my cheek, my neck. I thought, if only I had walked faster that day, even if my shoes and socks got wet with muddy water. The details of the dream gradually blurred. I only remember someone rushing in to save me just before the final step. My brother held me tightly, repeating, "I'm sorry," over and over. Later, I locked myself in a small room, with the curtains drawn, losing track of day and night. At my worst, I was kept alive by sedatives and 4 drips, until I received a misaddressed package with no name. I opened it with great trepidation, only to find a single stalk of lily of the valley. Other flowers droop their heads when they're about to wither, but not lily of the valley. Its bell-shaped buds hang from the stem, in full bloom. The card attached read, "Sweetness and a return to happiness." I heard that receiving lily of the valley brings good luck from the goddess of fortune. I thought, maybe, just maybe, things would get better. When I woke up, my parents and Miles were all gathered around my bed. At the door stood Julian. I could only see his trembling shoulders. Miles looked like he hadn't slept all night, his eyes bloodshot. "I'm sorry, Iris. I didn't know he was released early." It had been less than 4 years, but he had been released early. Perhaps it had something to do with the Sue family's current rise to power. They said a lot of things to me, but I didn't hear a single word. In a daze, I thought of Vincent telling me to take deep breaths and not be afraid. His voice was very reassuring. When Miles went downstairs to get my medicine, Julian walked in with heavy steps. He kept his head down, not daring to get too close. After a long moment, he looked up. I saw his red-rimmed eyes and the blue stubble on his cheeks. "I didn't know you had been through something so terrible." "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." I didn't know why he was apologizing to me. This had nothing to do with him, but he was so full of self-blame that he couldn't even look at me, repeating, "I'm sorry," over and over, saying he shouldn't have hurt me. "You must have gathered so much courage to trust me. I failed you." To this day, a stranger brushing past me on the street can make me instantly tense. When I wanted to make a change, a dejected Julian appeared in my life. I thought someone as good as him was worth mustering the courage for. Even though my palms were sweaty the first time we held hands, and I trembled uncontrollably the first time we hugged, I still felt more happiness than fear. Listening to him ramble on, I felt tired again and turned my back to sleep. In a daze, I thought I heard his stifled sobs. The Mu family had kept the incident under wraps to protect my reputation. I took a half-year leave of absence from school, and they only told people I was sick. The Su family did the same, saying that Leo, who was serving his sentence, had gone abroad to study. I heard they spent a lot of money to pull strings, but in the end, he was still sentenced to 5 years. The Su family used to have business dealings with us, but after that, we cut all ties. The way Leo was raised had a lot to do with his parents. The kids were just playing around. Why make such a big deal out of it? Besides, there was no substantial harm done. Why ruin the good relationship between our families? It made me sick. Now the Su family was at the height of their power, and our family could no longer compete. I heard my brother on the phone outside the door, his voice loud. "Serena, I'm warning you one last time. Don't let that animal of a brother of yours get near my sister again. If there's a next time, he won't just be missing a leg." Why was his leg lame? And his face, why was it covered in scars? Miles had never told me. In the Mu family, Leo's name was a taboo. I wanted to ask Miles, but seeing his trembling hand holding the phone, I didn't say anything. I had seen Serena in high school. She was Leo's sister, and Miles's classmate, a very beautiful girl. Even though her family favored boys, she lived a free and unrestrained life. On the night of the incident, what Miles had said on the phone was, "Your brother is confessing his feelings right now." To that Serena, "You've met her. The rain isn't heavy. Just take a taxi." I hadn't seen her since. I think Miles wasn't feeling very good at the moment either. After resting at home for a month, I thought I was much better. There was no need to torture my present self with the past. I proposed to go back to work. It took a lot of convincing my parents, but they finally agreed, hiring a bodyguard and driver to take me to and from work. Under their watchful eyes, I got into the back seat. The two burly men on either side of me squeezed me so tightly I couldn't even wave goodbye. The bodyguard's job was to take me to the apartment door and not leave until he saw me go inside. But as soon as I got into the elevator, I ran into Julian, carrying large bags. He looked away, pretending not to know me. I said, a little exasperated, "What are you doing here?" He stammered, "It's convenient. Close to the office. By the way, I moved in upstairs. We're neighbors now. If anything feels wrong, call me immediately." His family's company was in the opposite direction. When the elevator reached my floor, I got out. He was still calling from behind. "I put my key under your doormat. If you're scared, come find me." I ignored him and took out my key to open the door. The door to the apartment opposite mine suddenly opened. Vincent, carrying a bag of trash, met my eyes. I was stunned. Julian in the elevator was also stunned. I was wondering why the opposite apartment wasn't selling no matter how high the price was offered. Before he could finish, the elevator doors closed. I dismissed the bodyguard and greeted Vincent. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" He didn't speak, but moved closer to me. My breath hitched. I watched as he slowly squatted down, pulled the key from under the doormat, and put it in his own pocket. "If you need anything, just find me. I'm very close." He was wearing a beige loungewear set, as if he had just showered. He smelled faintly of body wash. It was a nice smell. I should ask him what brand he uses. A person like this, I really couldn't imagine him with blood on his hands. My memories collapsed and reassembled. A blurry fragment suddenly overlapped. His hand, holding a broken beer bottle, smashing it into a man's face over and over. He said not to be afraid, but my scream interrupted his approach. Lost in thought, I wanted to ask him, but the next second, his phone rang. The screen showed, "Old man." He pushed me back into my apartment. The moment the door closed, I heard him say with a gentle curl of his lips. Good night. The next evening, I received a call from old Mr. When? I heard Vincent moved in near you. Child, just treat him like a real uncle. Grandpa really likes you. Vincent is getting engaged soon. You must come with your family. After hanging up, I felt empty. Even a fool could understand the subtext of old Mr. Wen's words. Adopting me as his god. Granddaughter was probably to use moral and ethical ties to bind Vincent. Vincent was right. The old man had a devious mind. I was a little annoyed. Seeing a pile of unopened birthday gifts next to me, I started tearing them open as if I had found an outlet. Miles gave me the usual cliché of a fixed deposit. Every year. No originality. Celeste gave me tickets to a meet and greet with the idol we were crazy about in high school. Julian gave me a courtyard designed by a world-renowned architect. I had told him I wanted to visit it, and I was surprised he had actually bought it for me. Vincent sent a thin envelope. Inside was just a photo and some property documents. The photo showed a manor in Finland, covered in lily of the valley. They were unpicked, fresh, and full of life. But how would he know? Just then, he sent me a message. Want some late night snack? I politely refused. No, thank you, Uncle. He replied. Don't call me Uncle. Seeing I didn't reply, he sent a question mark. The prank lifted my spirits a bit, but after a while, the doorbell rang. Vincent was standing at the door with a bowl of wontons. Aren't you going to invite me in? I crossed my arms and smiled. I don't think that's appropriate. It's late. Why would an uncle visit his niece's house? He frowned. Did the old man say something to you? Yes. He said Uncle is getting engaged and invited me for a celebratory drink. How much should a niece give as a gift? Emboldened by his affection, I became more and more reckless, calling him Uncle over and over. Vincent's face grew darker and darker. How come I don't know I'm getting engaged? He squeezed past me and placed the bowl on the entryway table. You, what are you doing? I think I had gone too far. I quickly reached out to push him. He grabbed both my wrists with one hand and placed them on his chest. The distance between us closed, and a familiar scent washed over me. Say it again. Uncle. A kiss fell on me, hot and passionate. It started as a release of pent-up emotion, then gradually became gentle. When we separated, the tips of his ears were slightly red. He stared at my lips intently. The wontons are getting cold. Eat first. I sat on the carpet with the bowl of wontons, my mind a jumble. Vincent acted as if nothing had happened, sitting on the sofa and watching me. I felt like he was burning a hole in the back of my head with his stare. I ate very slowly, thinking about where to start with my questions. The rainy night, or the birthday gift. A large bowl of wontons. Completely finished. After eating, I turned my head. He was leaning back on the sofa. His expression relaxed as he watched me. It was spring, but I was so hot I could barely breathe. It's so hot. I'm going to turn on the air conditioner. I wasn't paying attention and stubbed my toe on the corner of the coffee table. I cried out. Before I could even bend down to hold it, he reached out and pulled me onto his lap. Wow. It didn't hurt anymore. His body was firm and hot, and he smelled amazing. I leaned into his chest, sniffing like a little dog, hearing his breathing quicken. I asked in a small voice, what kind of body wash do you use? A crack appeared on Vincent's face. The hand on my lower back pressed down hard, and he said through gritted teeth, "Are you doing this on purpose?" I shook my head like a rattle. He held my face in both hands, just as the atmosphere was getting intimate. The doorbell rang at an inopportune moment. "Iris, I hear your voice. What's wrong?" Vincent started to get up, but I pushed him back down onto the sofa. He looked a little resentful. I patted his cheek and limped to the door. Julian was banging on the door so hard my ears were ringing. As soon as I opened it, he grabbed my shoulders and spun me around. Seeing I was okay, he finally let out a sigh of relief. What just happened? I just wanted to get rid of him quickly. Nothing. You can go upstairs now. He still looked at me with concern. Why is your face so red? And you're not even wearing socks. Just as I was about to push him out, I saw his gaze shift upwards, becoming dark and unreadable. Vincent pushed his hand away and pressed his chest against my back. Julian's face was terrifyingly grim. He just stood there, silently looking at my face. I hadn't even thought of what to say when he turned and left, unwilling to let me see his reddening eyes. I stared at his back, my mouth open, but I still didn't say anything. The door was slammed shut by Vincent, blocking my view. He whispered in my ear, "Why aren't your eyes on him?" I turned and pushed Vincent out too. Life went on as usual. I never saw Julian again. Occasionally, I would get calls from an unknown number. On the other end, he sounded drunk, mumbling incoherently. "You have the wrong number. I'm not Celeste." Actually, I heard him. He was calling my name over and over. Vincent would occasionally pick me up from work. He seemed to be not busy at all lately, bringing me a late night snack almost every night. I gained 8 pounds in a month. One day after work, he told me he had an online video conference that night and would come over to watch a movie with me later. The bodyguard dropped me off at the door and watched me go in. I was a little bored and started looking for a movie to watch later. A romantic comedy. Or a horror movie. Maybe a family drama about an uncle. That would surely make Vincent's face darker than the bottom of a pot. As I was choosing, the lights suddenly went out. It must have been a tripped breaker. Just as I was about to go out to check the breaker in the hallway, my hand on the doorknob froze. Hi. End apartment shouldn't have this kind of problem. I called Vincent, but he didn't answer. He must have still been in his meeting. I sent a message to the bodyguard who lived nearby, asking him to come up and check. It would probably take him about 10 minutes. I was looking for a light source when the door suddenly started to shake. I couldn't stop trembling, and my phone slipped from my hand. After a few thumps, the door went still. The lights came back on. I took a deep breath and looked through the peephole. But it was dark outside, as if someone had deliberately covered the camera. The door started shaking again, and a nauseating voice came. "Iris, I know you're in there." Ha 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 ha. I desperately covered my mouth and stumbled backwards. A series of small clicks came from the lock, and a moment later, the door was opened, revealing that sickening face. Leo Sue's eagle-like eyes stared at me. "Thanks to you, I learned a lot of lock-picking skills from those lowlifes in prison." I took a step back, slowly reaching for the bag on the sofa. Inside were the self-defense tools Miles had prepared for me. But Leo closed the door behind him and was also approaching me, step by step. "Why are you hiding from me? Didn't I say I like you? You said it wasn't like, but I've been thinking about you for 4 years. And it took a lot of effort to find you. Why are you afraid of me? Don't you like me too?" When Serena introduced us, "You were the one who offered your hand first." Serena had brought him to our house once. That was the first time I had met him. I had politely greeted him and shaken his hand. But I never thought that in the eyes of a pervert like him, this could be seen as a sign of affection. I tried to stay calm, but my voice was still shaking. "Let's talk about this calmly. Don't come any closer." He looked as if he had heard a joke. He leaned on his cane and slowly limped towards me. A banging on the door started. I heard Vincent's out of control voice. "Iris, open the door." I was filled with regret. I should have given him a key, but his voice was a great comfort. I calmed down and calculated the distance to the door. Leo's leg was injured. If I ran fast enough around him, I could open the door for Vincent. Faster. Run faster. I ran with all my might. Leo's face changed. He reached out to grab me, but only managed to touch the corner of my clothes. When my hand touched the doorknob, tears fell from my eyes. But the door seemed to be broken. The deadbolt was stuck, and no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't open. Leo's face was contorted with rage. He turned around, his cane scraping against the smooth floor with a harsh sound. I desperately jiggled the doorknob, my voice choked with sobs. "It won't open. Vincent, it won't open." Vincent stopped banging on the door. He spoke with a heavy nasal tone, his voice feigning calmness. "Don't be afraid. I'm right here. Try one more time. If it doesn't work, move to the side. I'll kick it down." Leo was getting closer. I took a deep breath and twisted the deadbolt back and forth a few times. Click. The door opened. Leo lunged forward, grabbed my collar, and pulled me towards him. A cold dagger was pressed against my neck. I heard his sickening voice. You're here. I've been waiting for you." Vincent raised his hands, trying to calm him down. "Don't do anything rash. Put the knife down first." Leo's expression was twisted and strange. "See my leg? It's thanks to you. Vincent, how do you think I should get my revenge?" He threw his cane at him. What did you hit me with that day? A golf club. This will do just as well. Come on. Cripple your own legs. I know exactly what sound it makes when you use your strength. Put some force into it, or this knife will go into her throat. I desperately shook my head at Vincent. He stared at the dagger at my neck, and, as if resigned, picked up the cane and said, I was the one who hit you that day. It has nothing to do with her. Take it all out on me. 1 hit. 2 hits. The sound of heavy, dull blows came. Vincent's forehead was covered in sweat. With each hit, his body would tremble violently. But even so, even after hitting himself until he was weak and kneeling, he didn't stop. Stop. Vincent. Stop hitting yourself. He used all his strength to look up at me, but his gaze was gradually losing focus. Leo laughed sinisterly in my ear, patting my face with the cold dagger. Don't be in a hurry. After I've ruined his legs, I'll disfigure your face. That will be fair. He pulled me to the sofa. His hideous face was very close, covered in terrifying, centipede-like scars. The dagger slid across my cheek. He said to himself, where should I cut first? The skin, then the nose, and finally the eyes. I closed my eyes in pain. Taking advantage of his inattention, I secretly took out the lipstick-shaped portable knife from the bag behind me. I stabbed down hard. Leo reacted quickly and caught the blade with his hand, but the pain still made him let go. The dagger fell. I stumbled towards the door. Vincent couldn't speak anymore. I held his face and called his name. He just weakly lifted his eyelids. Seeing it was me, he seemed to relax and slowly close them. I tried to drag him out the door, but he was too heavy, and his legs were useless. He didn't budge. Leo picked up the dagger. I held the small, less than 10-centimeter long knife against him. With no chance of winning, he approached slowly, like a madman. I'm already like this. It would be great to drag you all down with me. When he was less than 2 meters away, he roared and pounced. I instinctively bent down to protect Vincent, but the pain I expected never came. I opened my eyes. Julian was standing in front of me. He let out a muffled grunt and grabbed Leo with both hands. Blood dripped, faster and faster, onto the floor. He pushed Leo back in pain, until Leo fell backwards, his head hitting the glass coffee table on the side. The glass shattered everywhere. He went still. Julian turned to look at me, a large bloodstain spreading across his chest. Seeing I was okay, he let out a heavy sigh and, no longer able to hold on, knelt to the ground. He slowly collapsed, as if he were saying something to me, but his voice was faint. I kept patting Vincent's face, crying and shouting, "Wake up, Vincent, wake up." His face was as pale as paper. His brow twitched slightly. He couldn't open his eyes, but he managed to whisper a comfort to me. It's okay. It's okay. I hugged him tightly, my tears smearing all over his face. Julian's epilogue. When Celeste was 17, I knew I liked her. I wanted to wait until she was in college to confess, but I waited and waited. And then she said she was going abroad with her uncle. I was unwilling. An unrequited love that ended before I could even confess. How could I be willing? Miles looked at me like I was a fool. You call her name when you're drunk. Like a broken record. I said, you don't understand. I never even told her how I feel. This will be a lifelong regret. His expression was a bit lonely, but it wouldn't have made a difference if you had told her. 3 months after she went to the UK, I finally found time to fly over from work. It was snowing heavily in Manchester. I stood downstairs, waiting for her. The snow piled up on my shoulders, but I didn't feel a single bit of cold. She appeared, stepping on the snow, looking lovely. Just as I was about to approach her, a boy called her name. The boy was thin, wearing only a cheap, thin coat in the dead of winter. Celeste ran into his arms, crying her eyes out. I watched them embrace, having a passerby take their picture. A picture. Perfect couple. On the lit up second floor. Vincent stood with a glass of wine, looking down on everything. I hated that look of his. He was only 3 years older than me. Why did he have to act so old? I flew back home that night. Actually, I wasn't that sad. I just felt empty. The confession was never made. I had jinxed myself. It really did become a regret. I worked day and night and didn't think much about Celeste. But I was overworked and got into a car accident. My family ordered me to rest. I suddenly had nothing to do and spent my days just staring into space. Miles saw I was in a bad mood and often invited me to his house. He was a bit of a smartass, but he was a good person. It was during this time that I noticed Iris. As a child, she had a very low presence. Standing next to Celeste, you wouldn't even see her. She would always find ways to sneak into her brother's room and then secretly look at me, her face redder than the watermelon she was holding. I found it a bit amusing and treated her like a little sister. Once, she asked me for help with a high-level math problem. As I was explaining, she actually fell asleep. The wind blew the pages of her notebook, turning to the last page, where her neat, beautiful handwriting read, "A secret crush is a grand pantomime." I thought we were kindred spirits. She opened her eyes and met mine, her face turning red again. On a whim, I asked her, "Iris, do you want to give us a try?" Iris was very good, so good that I often felt guilty. So I tried my best to be good to her. Looking at her happy face, I sometimes felt happy too, but I never took a picture with her. That winter night in Manchester, the flash of the camera, the memory of it still made my heart ache. She also never argued with me. She was well behaved and sensible. They say that when a current girlfriend asks about an ex, she eventually gets angry with herself. I found that amusing. Iris never mentioned Celeste in front of me. I thought that on our second anniversary, our relationship would be stable, and it would be time to go public. But fate loves to play tricks. Miles said Celeste was coming back, and she was single. I didn't hear the rest. They were asking me about Iris. I subconsciously said it was out of pity, that it was just for fun. Actually, I had never thought about it, but the answer just came out. Iris heard it. Her eyes were as red as a rabbit's. I didn't dare to look. I knew I had wronged her, but if I could have a do-over, I still wouldn't want to miss my chance. Things with Celeste went smoothly. She didn't seem to like me that much, but I didn't seem to care that much either. But there was always something unexpected. Iris and Vincent were getting very close. She would even blush for him, just like she did for me. My chest felt tight. I couldn't describe the feeling. It must have been concern for her. Vincent was not someone to be trifled with. That kid from the Sioux family had somehow offended him and was beaten half to death and sent away. And he was ordered by the Wynn family to go abroad to avoid the trouble. The way he looked at her, a man couldn't hide it. Like to the point of dying for her. The more dangerous a man like that is, the more dangerous he is. I warned Iris several times to stay away from him, but she ignored me. That group photo from that night, my expression was twisted, but I still kept it for many years, because it was the only photo we had together. Even if another man had his arm around her in the photo, and I was just an observer, I was restless, smoking one cigarette after another. When I was with Celeste at a concert, my mind was filled with the scene of Vincent holding her. I asked Celeste, "Do you have someone you like?" "Yes, but he's too poor. My grandfather gave him $5 million and he ran away." Her eyes filled with tears, and she sniffled and said, "But he's very satisfied with you. We should just make do. Why don't we give it a try?" The string that had been pulled taut in my chest suddenly snapped. I remembered asking Iris the same thing 2 years ago. Her eyes were wet then, but now she would never look at me like that again. The next day, I made an excuse to go find her, only to see her getting out of Vincent's car. Her face flushed, and she said she didn't like me anymore, that she liked Vincent. What was I supposed to say? In the end, all that came out was a slander against Vincent, but she didn't even bother to ask, as if looking at me was disgusting. On her birthday, she wouldn't even open the carefully prepared gift I had for her, her eyes fixed on Vincent. I was going mad with jealousy. What right did Vincent have? But I soon learned that he had every right. Miles told me that something very bad had happened to Iris. The person who saved her then was Vincent. I had been with her for so long, and I had never once asked her what had happened during those 6 months. I had even heard her time and time again, turning a blind eye to her tears. I moved in upstairs from her, and I saw Vincent again. He had beaten me to it, buying the apartment opposite hers. Later, when I saw Iris opening the door with slightly red lips, and Vincent standing in front of me with his arm around her, declaring his ownership, I couldn't say a word. I turned, but my feet wouldn't move. Vincent also came out. He stood next to me and said coldly, "I gave you a chance." I didn't quite understand. When I heard a noise from downstairs, I was in the shower. I had just rinsed off the soap, and I was a step behind Vincent again. But at least I was able to block the knife for Iris. I watched her cry over Vincent, as if it weren't my shoulder that had been pierced, but my heart. I called out to her, "Iris, can you look at me?" She held Vincent's face, never giving me a single glance. In a daze, her round, childish face appeared in my mind, standing behind the crowd, her head down, silent. I went to the restroom. As I was rushing back to dig the dirt for Celeste, Vincent stopped me. "What's your name again?" "Never mind. Dig one for that little girl over there too." It turned out Vincent had seen her first. Leah Sue died. The Sue family made a big fuss for a long time, but it was eventually suppressed by the Wynn family. Julian was sent to Japan to recover. I unblocked him, but I never received another message from him. Vincent's injuries took half a year to heal, and he was gradually able to get out of bed and walk. I used the excuse of finding Celeste to go to the Wynn family's house all the time. Old Mr. Wynn stopped pretending and would glare at me. Vincent, using his leg as an excuse, would openly put his arm around me and ask him, still adopting a granddaughter. Old Mr. Wynn would bang his cane on the floor, sputtering, you, for a long time, until Celeste stuffed a grape in his mouth. "Grandpa, you should talk less. Otherwise, my uncle will really be single for the rest of his life." And then he really did shut up. Miles also came to visit Vincent occasionally. He was much bolder now, calling him by his first name, but his attitude was still very respectful. Sometimes he would bring a project proposal to ask for Vincent's advice, only to be told it was a money-losing venture, and leave dejectedly. Miles tentatively told me, "Actually, the one who saved you that day, I know. It was Vincent." He scratched his head and said, when I got his call and rushed over. Leo was already lying on the side, beaten to a pulp. "You were terrified, and you wouldn't let anyone touch you. You only dared to look up when you heard my voice." Later, the matter was kept very quiet. The Wynn family didn't want any leaks, and he also said not to mention it in front of you again. "So I never told you." As he spoke, his eyes reddened again. I patted his back and said it was okay. Then I turned and glared at Vincent. He shrugged innocently. As soon as Miles left, I held his face and asked fiercely, "When did you start liking me?" He pretended to think for a long time and said, "I don't remember." I pinched his ear and said with a half-teasing smile, "Is it because you're getting old and your memory is failing, Uncle?" Hearing this, Vincent, like one of Pavlov's dogs, his face darkened and he was about to erupt. I quickly coaxed him. "I won't call you that anymore. I won't." "Don't be angry," he said through gritted teeth, his voice slow. "It's not that you can't call me that. Tonight, in bed." I quickly covered his mouth. The day he fully recovered, he led me to the garden. Waving a small shovel in his hand, he said softly, "Do you remember your wish bottle?" I didn't remember. He dug and dug. Although his leg was better, I was still a little worried as I stood by. The old soil was turned over, and a small, yellowed glass bottle came into view. Vincent picked it up, wiped it clean with a handkerchief, and handed it to me. "Take a look." I took it with anticipation. He was still gesturing with his hands next to me. "I remember you were only this tall back then. You always stood at the back, didn't talk much. I thought you were a pretty little mute." On the rolled up paper, in crooked handwriting, it said, "I wish to be seen." Tears rolled down my cheeks. I wiped them again and again, but it seemed they would never stop. Vincent was a little worried and quickly asked me what was wrong. I threw myself into his arms and sobbed. It turns out I was always seen. Vincent's epilogue. My seniority is high. Adults 20 or 30 years older than me call me little brother, while a boy 3 years younger than me calls me uncle. The situation is a bit amusing. Ever since I can remember, I've had endless language, finance, and equestrian lessons. Even my eating and sleeping were strictly regulated. I was deprived of all childish entertainment. The fireplace in the study was warm, and tutors lined up at the door. I stood by the French windows, watching them play in the snow. The old man said that since I was born with everything, I naturally had to make sacrifices. So I was always an observer. The Mu family's little girl was too. She stood in the corner, and no one would turn around to talk to her all day. So I became her observer too. I observed her fingers, clutching the hem of her clothes, Her expression a mixture of grievance and forbearance. When I picked up Celeste from school, I could always find her among the sea of students in school uniforms. I watched her grow up. At 17, she had blossomed into a beautiful young lady, greeting me politely. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't lying to her. I really don't know when I started to like her. It was a slow, gradual process. That night, it was drizzling. I went home, but Celeste wasn't there. The driver said Celeste was at a classmate's birthday party and wouldn't be going to her tutoring class. And her. I didn't know if she had an umbrella. I sat for a long time, then suddenly remembered I needed to buy a pack of cigarettes. A broken umbrella in the alley. A whimpering cry. I got out of the car and took the golf club from the back seat. 1 hit. 2 hits. He lost his strength. But I couldn't stop. Until I heard her cry. I wanted to get closer, but she was trembling with fear. In the end, I called Miles. The old man had just gotten his cane. He used all his strength on my back. What did I teach you? Self-control and propriety. You used to be so good. Are you trying to ruin all my hard work? You showed kindness and saved her. That's enough. Did you weigh the pros and cons before beating him like that? Was it worth making an enemy? I said. I couldn't help it. Couldn't help it. That's the Move family's business. What does it have to do with you? Do you still not know you're wrong? I looked up at him directly. If it happened again, I still wouldn't be able to help it. The old man's hand trembled, and his cane fell to the ground. A man who had been through decades of struggle. He saw through my thoughts at a glance. He cursed. You animal. You animal. How old are you? She's only 18. I was ordered to go abroad and take over the overseas business. Before I left, I would often sit downstairs from her house, staring at the tightly closed curtains of her room. I sent her a stalk of lily of the valley, hoping she would be lucky. Later, I was very busy. I heard she was gradually getting better. On her private social media, I could see her happiness. It was that kid from the Yen family, the one she used to secretly watch. I had seen him downstairs before. It was good. She seemed happy, but Celeste received one gift after another, all tailored to her tastes. And her. She didn't even have her favorite lily of the valley. He didn't seem to care about her preferences. I thought it was time to go back. Before I returned, I used Celeste's phone to call Julian. It's me, Vincent. Celeste is coming back soon. I was wondering if you had time to welcome her. By the way, she likes lily of the valley. The old man was right. I'm not a good person.